growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, Dr. Steve Rasner here with another episode of The Lionhearted. Want to get right to it. At my last episode, I was talking about game planning to maximize not just the rest of 2019, but 2020 as well. This is when you do that. And I talked about goal setting, and I broke it down into career goal setting, things like publishing a book or writing an article, financial goal setting, like paying off toxic credit cards, or three, personal goal setting, like planning a vacation for the fam. And I don't know if it's sexy or not sexy. It doesn't matter to me, because I know you need to do it if you want to be a productive, high-achieving professional. Or if nothing else, if you want to get to the basics and find out, where are you at with dentistry? Are you okay? I mean, are you good enough? If you're good enough, that's awesome, man. You're probably not listening to me if it's good enough, or maybe you stopped. But either way, it was more than a one podcast subject, so I ran out of some time, and I want to pick it up because I was about to talk to you about things that are directly related to the productivity and the success of your office. And I actually want to give them to you in some kind of order of what I think would have the most profound effect. So let me give an example. And what I'm going to talk about to start with is how good your recall program is in your office. And it's not a little thing, it's a big thing about how well you're doing this year or doing next year. Let me explain why. All of us have the exact same problem of people that come into us for treatment and then we just lose them. And you think sometimes, and sometimes it's true, that you lost them to another practice. But very often, much more often than not, they're just lost. They're not coming in anywhere. They're busy doing their lives. And let me tell you something, man. A successful, healthy recall schedule is the backbone forever of your practice. Has nothing to do, in my opinion, with whatever fee you generate for a recare visit. I'm not even talking about that. And I will say this, that is probably the most predictable profitability center you have in your practice. Think about it for a minute. If you fill a schedule of, let's say, 8 patients over 8 hours in hygiene, it's guaranteed to be profitable as long as you are doing certain things. Like, I'm a big advocate of you paying on collections. Don't get mad at me, hygiene schedules, hygienists in the profession. I didn't say what the percentages they should pay you. I didn't say they shouldn't give you educational and financial incentives and bonuses, because I do think they should do that, they being your boss. But if you're paying on production, you need to write to me at the end of this podcast, because you're getting ripped. But if you go back to what my point was, and that was a full hygiene schedule is guaranteed profitability to your practice. Why? Because there's no redos. There's nothing else you do in your practice. You have done restorations where the patient came back in a week or two, or called because they had a food trap, so you left an open contact. You have put a crown in or tried a crown in and they didn't like the shade, or you didn't like the contours. You have done multiple things like this with implant dentistry and with any removable dentistry. And no one sits there that I know of and tracks what I call non-productive visits following this. Nobody tracks during the day, oh, I spent 90 minutes today doing something over a second time, and how that cuts in to your profitability. So hygiene is, in fact, a predictable center of that, because in 99.99% cases, nobody gets out of the chair, although it happened to me like once every 2 years, it happens, and doesn't think they had a good enough hygiene visit, and you have to bring them back. So I don't want to underplay that. That being said, the real power in the recall is the fact that you retained a patient. So you retained this ambassador of goodwill. So let me just get to the point. I have tried everything in my 39-year history on how to have recall. So for example, I mandated it. I gave a number of 5 recalls due per week for every front desk staff member. And the problem with that is you can't enforce it. What are you going to do, fire them if they don't do it? So that doesn't really work. And I've tried all kinds of programs in between. Don't get mad at the messenger. I'm only giving the only thing I know that works. And here's what it is. I bribe them. You can call it what you want, but I pay them for each recall. So let me elaborate. So it's $10 per recall, which is incredibly worth it, if that patient actually comes in. So this is how it works. They have to get a minimum of 6 to get paid. So you can't just put in 1, 2, 3, 4. It has to be 6 to get paid. And then the next level to get paid again is when they get to 10, and so forth. I have somebody separate with no agenda in the office who tracks that the patients actually came in. Also, it has to be somebody who is over 6 months due to come in. So if you want, I know it's a lot of you are listening right now and you can't be writing this down. If you email me, I promise I'll get it to you in writing. And listen, just like everything else I tell you in these podcasts, this is my opinion. And I have anecdotal evidence that it works. And look, I have 18 staff members. And if you have 4, not everybody's going to care about what I did, making an extra $100 every time they give you 6 recalls or 5 recalls. Not everybody's interested in that. I have employees that are married to significant others that making an extra couple $100 a month is no big deal to them. Here's the deal for me. Getting a recall visit in that somebody that wouldn't have come in is powerful for the practice. Number one, I call them new patients, so to speak. They're the best new patient you could ever get, meaning that they're coming back, so they already trust you to begin with. They know a lot about your office to begin with, how you get paid, what generally the fees are, the staff members, so there's a lot to it to reactivate these ambassadors of goodwill. So again, the summary is I have only 2, sometimes a 3rd staff member out of the 18 I have who even bother. And they submit a list to one other staff member. That staff member checks to see if they came in, and they get paid on that. I have one staff member that makes a couple $100 a month doing it. Here's the point. I don't care how I get it. For $10 per person, it couldn't be more worth it. I mean, I don't know if it would be wrong to pay them even more. And at times, in a pinch, when the practice really felt stale, I've done temporary, increased that by 2, paid them $20. I've done that for short periods of time just to get a boost of hygiene in the office. And typically how it happens in my office is they'll turn in 10. Even at $10, it's an extra 100. At $20, it's $200. But the payoff to you, even if they don't need anything, even if that recall patient doesn't need care, you got them back into practice, it's huge. Now, one more thing while we're talking recall. What I used to do is I would do what I called a Rambo recall weekend or day. And this is important. And I did this stuff. I would bring in 3 staff members who would get paid for their time to come in. And what they would do is one would go through the charts. Now, if you do this, you're going to go through 2018 charts first and then 2017 charts. Don't go back 5 years like I used to do, because you'll waste an enormous amount of time. The further out the patients are, it should be intuitive to you that the harder they are to get back and the more likely that they're not with your practice anymore. And I wasted a lot of time. I used to go back like 3 or 4 years. Do the opposite. First check 2019. We're talking to you right now at the end of 2019. So make sure the people from 6 months ago are due. So one person would be in charge of that. The second person, listen to me carefully, would be in charge of looking at the type of work they had done. So that when you get one shot at this recall visit. And you don't want to just call them up and say, "Hi, it's Amy from Dr. Rasner's office. You're overdue for your checkup." Are you kidding me? That's not inspiring. But what about, "Hi, it's Amy from Dr. Rasner's office. My job is to look at patients who haven't been in the office in 6 months or more. And I know you had, that bridge done on the upper left. You had the root canal done on the lower right. You had an implant done, a new partial denture. First of all, how's that doing?" And whatever the answer is, well, our goal is to minimize you having to invest anything significant going forward. And one way for us to do that is to see you, of course, more frequently. It's either yes or no. You're acknowledging by doing the research that you know about their mouth. Anything you say beyond "you're overdue for your checkup" is going to help you. Okay, so you need to do that. And then the third person is literally on the phone being fed this information. Can you picture this? So the third person's, hearing, "Sam Jones was here 9 months ago. He had a root canal in the lower right, overdue." Bam. You get it from here. Somebody's making that call. They're really effective, powerful, but you can only do them for about 4 hours because it burns people out. So I call that a Rambo. It's an opportunity for 2 or 3 people. You need 3 to make a little extra money, and you could put a bonus in it as well. Reactivating patients that came to you is very powerful. So that's one thing I want you to think about between now and the end of the year. Number 2, let's talk about your insurance department. If you heard my last podcast, you know I get paid up front. If you want to know the details of that, then write to me. When I did a forensic accounting on my practice a few years back, I found we were out $200,000+ of work we had done. And that's from a practice whose philosophy is to get paid up front. So how did that happen? Well, because even though I get paid up front, we do count into what the patient has to pay us the amount we expect from their insurance, which is usually $1,000 to $1,500 max. And by the way, if you're doing comprehensive care examinations, that doesn't go too far. That's just the truth, and you shouldn't feel funny about that. It's not your fault or your office's fault, because that's the same maximum almost that we had in 1980. So it's, I once read a study that if the cost of living was taken into consideration with the insurance maximums, you should be getting about $18,000 a year for the patients. Well, that's not going to happen. So all those $1,000 maximums, and many of them never got paid to me. So why, I wondered. And the answer is dirty data. So what I mean by that is having wrong group numbers, wrong birth dates, wrong social security, wrong address. So one of the things that you may want to consider that I did in the last 2 years is I hired a part-time employee. Check me out on this. If you have a small practice, you just started, this isn't necessary. But if you've been in practice for over 3 to 4 or 5 years, and your practice is growing, you may want to strongly consider what I'm about to tell you. This person's job was to look ahead at the schedule and make sure. So they would be, in the beginning, they were only a couple days ahead, but at the end, they got it to be a week ahead. And this has to go on for 3 to 6 months, where they're looking at all the data of the insurance companies you take and of each patient and making sure it's cleaned up. Because insurance companies are actually trained how not to pay you and how to delay your claim payments. And it's any one of a number of things. I didn't know this. From a group number being wrong. I mean, we all think it's because they're going to deny a crown on a tooth and they want to downgrade it to a filling, and sometimes that's the case as well. But beyond that, they're going to deny and try to deny you up to 12 months. So hopefully the kick in, if they don't have to pay you, can kick in. So look at your insurance, consider hiring a part-time person. Maybe they'll become full-time. You don't need somebody, by the way, they don't need to be extensively trained in insurance. You can have somebody in your office train them, an elementary level employee who just has to get on a phone and make a phone call and push all the prompts when they call an insurance company and find out delayed claims or look into the clean data of patients over the next 6 months in your practice. So that would be assessing your insurance and possible dirty data. What about marketing? When's the last time you really looked at your marketing? Now, I've gone on record and I repeat it. How you market completely depends on where you're at in the United States. You cannot market the same in Philadelphia, which is only 40 minutes from my practice, as I can in South Jersey. Because the ROI, return on investment, in Philadelphia on a radio ad is nothing like I get in my local radio ads. Here's what I want you to focus on, and here's what I want you to write to me at Dr. Rasner at AOL if you need it. Look, I'm in this for you. Big part of this is me just mentoring you and having you, maybe, I don't know, email me and tell me something worked that you've done and that I've taught you how to do. I mean, why not do that? So if you want to write to me and get one of my ads, I'll gladly give it to you. If you want to go online and look at some of my products, a lot of my ads are in the Bulletproof Extraordinary Practice book I wrote 3 years ago. And it shouldn't surprise you that a lot of my ads are based around the fearful patient, sedation. But I got something today that I'm transitioning into that's even better, and that's trust and confidence. That should be your guiding principles of branding your practice, that they can trust you, that you are confident and competent to accomplish what it is they need. And you got to be true to that. If you're an early implant dentist and you come across a case that has high-end requirements, maybe it's number 8, maybe it's number 9, and it's an implant and it's a thin biotype, maybe that's not the one you should be doing if you're only in this for a year or two in terms of implant dentistry or grafting or whatever it is. That's part, I sometimes get some of the seasoned listeners, they ask me, why don't I do my own endo? Like, why do I send, because we send molar endo out. Me, being in practice 39 years, I do that. Why would I do that? And I didn't do it my whole career, by the way. I do it now because under my guidelines, under my rules and standards, and so my bar is very high. If I can achieve that within my own office, terrific. If I think the patient's better served, and that's what I mean. That's what I'm trying to come across to you, that they can trust me because I am looking for their best outcomes. I'm not going to be overzealous in their case in my recommendations. I am going to actually try to be, which I'm encouraging you to be, conservative. You almost never will find a surgeon that is radical, that everything's, I think most surgeons want to be conservative in their approach and recommendations to a patient, or any good physician as well. And I believe it translates and resonates to us as well as dentists. So confidence, competence, and trust is all over the map in my marketing in the last 3 years. And when I say that to you, in my in-office word-of-mouth marketing, which if you don't have that yet, I've already on many podcasts offered to send it to you. You would just write to me at Dr. Rasner at AOL. And I'll send you literally the program we use in our office to have word-of-mouth referrals. It basically goes like, send someone you love to someone you trust. And then my radio ads are all about that they can trust us. Now, I don't come out and say, you can trust us, but in my voice, in my messaging, that's what they're hearing. So where's your marketing at right now? Do you need to relook at it? And to be quite fair with you, I've recently explored a national company that produced a magazine for me. It's the first time I've done it. Well, it's the first time I ever did it. And I've never believed in direct mail as an effective campaign. So look, take advantage of me in this regard. And I can tell you what works for my hands and what doesn't work. And I can tell you that the jury is out on the magazine campaign. It's a really powerful, I'm sure some of you have used them by now. I mean, they do a really amazing job. The question is does that translate into a high return on investment? Do I get patients from that source enough, and good patients that want the type of care that I'm trying to get you guys to offer, and that's comprehensive examinations and comprehensive care. And just go back to some earlier podcasts on what that literally means. But if you write to me, I'll tell you about it. And I'm feeling pretty good about it, to be honest. It's taken about every bit of 4 or 5 months to get to this point, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. And then the last thing I would look at to you is, to look at for this year and for next is your case presentation skills. You know, do you have a protocol? Do you or don't you? From the time that patient first telephones you, something made them telephone you. Something made them, your branding is what made them, whatever that is. Are you in a telephone book? Do you market? Do you go to local community events and that's how they decided to, a friend told them? Something made that patient pick up the telephone or go on the internet and try to make an appointment with you. My question is, do you have a protocol in place from the moment that happens to the moment you walk into the room, every step? And is that a random event? It changes from phone call to phone call? Or is there a protocol that guides your employees and staff members from the moment they call, to, I have a designated person that takes that call. I have 18 employees, and I still use one key person. Other employees may take the phone call, screen them briefly, get basic information, but I have one designated employee. I wish I had two, by the way, that I trust enough to convert that patient into a quality new appointment exam. That's big stuff. This is big stuff. I'm going to continue this line. I want to give one shout out. I said I started doing this on my last podcast. This will go out to Trevor from Canada, who really just wrote me a complimentary email telling me how much the podcasts have helped him. Thank you for that, Trevor. The reason I'm bringing you up is because I want to point something out. Because the names in Canada that you're located in kind of reminds me of a dentist I met 30 years ago at another course who was suffering because they were in such a remote area. And there's doctors out there, God bless Pete Dawson, who just passed away, but he used to say, build it and they will come. And to an extent, that's true. Here's the caveat takeaway from this particular email. Build it and they will come is true. If you are really, really good, not just clinically, a good organization, you will be successful no matter what. But you will be limited if you're in a remote area of Canada or Alaska or the United States. So you need to incorporate those parameters when you decide to buy a practice or open up. You certainly don't have to be in a major city. I am 50 minutes from a major city. I am located in a rural area, 50 minutes from Philadelphia, that is more known for its unemployment and economic challenges and lack of growth than it is anything else. So I can't give you a better example than my own, that yes, you can make it. It requires enormous work. One thing that happens in that kind of setting is it's harder to find quality staff members because there's less people to draw from. So it is a lot of factors go into where you locate and where you decide to open up. Look, I'll leave it with this. You've got one shot at this, and it's going to go fast. I'm telling you, 5 years is going to turn into 15, and the time to do it right is early on. The time to set yourself up for the future is now. So keep listening. Write to me. Write to your other mentors that you respect. And give it all you got in the first 10 years. Don't try to make up ground in your 50s. You can do that, but make the right decisions from the organizational philosophy you have to how you're going to present work, to career moves, where you're at, how long you're going to stay with an associateship, the whole thing. I'll help you as much as I can. Thanks for tuning in. This is Lionhearted with Dr. Steve Rasner. Thanks.
Hey, it's Beth at the Rasner Institute, and I'm here to tell you about one of the most empowering courses in dentistry today. We offer a highly personalized, hands-on, live patient course here in our office in New Jersey. We're going to ask you what types of procedures you're hoping to see, and then we'll line those procedures up with the available caseload. You'll work in a team with another doctor, taking turns as doctor and assistant, and when you need help, we're there to guide you. But now we've got some new options. Now we're offering a limited number of observer-only spots. Maybe you're just not ready to make that hands-on move into live patient. Maybe watching will help you get ready to make that move into live patients. So come and join us as an observer. The second option is a single-day option. We've heard from a lot of people that maybe 2 days was too much and they couldn't get away. So now we're offering Friday only, Saturday only, or you can still come for both. And no matter which day you come, everybody's welcome to come to the Friday night dinner. It's a totally awesome and empowering experience that will leave you feeling like a gladiator.